Welcome, everyone, to a Wednesday episode of the Call Sheet Podcast here at the Fans First Sports Network. Kevin Smith with you. Got a great show today. This is going to be interesting. The title of today's show, True Detective. True Detective, how football coaches use clues to expose their opponents. We're making comparisons between football coaches and detectives on today's show. How did we arrive at this as a topic? Well, it's the dead season as far as television and entertainment is concerned. I enjoy the Olympics, but a little too much ice dancing in prime time. Gotta admit, ice dancing doesn't really do it for me. Too much ice skating. They didn't have anything exciting on last night. I couldn't find anything good on regular TV. So I've clicked on HBO. What's on HBO? Anything good, anything interesting? And as I'm scrolling through the options, I saw the link for season 1 of True Detective. Season 1 of True Detective, Matthew McConaughey, Woody Harrelson, probably the single greatest season of television I've ever watched. I mean, if you had to force me to say, you can pick one season of any TV show or any show that, has been a streaming show, etc. Give me the best one of all time. I'd probably go season 1, True Detective. I've watched it in its entirety twice. When it first aired and then again a couple years later, but I really hadn't seen it. It's probably going on a good 6-7 years now that I haven't seen any of that season. And so last night, at around 10 o'clock at night, I decided to click on the first episode. I'm going to watch season 1, episode 1 again. And at 1:45 in the morning, after binge watching 3 straight episodes, I went to bed. It's that good. It's that good. Even as I finished the second one, I was like, it's 12:30. I should go to bed. But as I'm contemplating this is the genius of streaming services. The second episode just rolled into the third episode. And then the third episode started, and I was like, well, it started. I guess I can't go now. It is a brilliant series. If you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor. Season 1, True Detective. The chemistry between McConaughey and Harrelson is worth it alone. But there's so much more. The cinematography is amazing. The murder mystery is fascinating. The scenery set in the Louisiana bayou is equal parts creepy. I mean, the bayou has just such a creepy past about it. I mean, you want to talk about a place that has some ghosts and some skeletons, but just the landscape itself lends itself to a feeling of discomfort, while it's also very beautiful. But you string along the shacks and the swamps and the industrial areas, the oil fields. Boy, it makes for a great setting for a murder mystery. But as I'm watching those first 3 episodes, Matthew McConaughey's character carries around a notebook everywhere he goes. It's more of like a binder. And, he stores files in it. He obviously writes in it. And everywhere he goes, he's taking notes. And as I was watching that, I was thinking to myself, he's a football coach. Or, to make this parallel maybe a little bit more appropriate, a football coach is a detective. What do we do in both worlds? We hunt out clues, whether it's about a suspect or, in the case of a coach, about an opponent, that will allow you to build a profile of that entity that you can then use to defeat it. I mean, you've got some very obvious things, right? What do police start with when they're building a profile? They start with the physical traits: height, weight, race, hair color, eye color. What kind of a build did he have, etc. Build me a physical profile. They bring in a sketch artist and they literally draw a picture of that individual. Well, what do football coaches start with? They start with something very similar: a physical profile. How do they line up? What are their base schemes? What do they tend to run from each scheme? How often do they use this personnel group versus that personnel group? What are their favorite plays, formations? You bring in a sketch artist. The sketch artist just happens to be a guy who draws X's and O's. And you draw everything up. You X and O it to death to build a profile of what they look like. But it's not just a physical profile, it's a psychological profile as well. In season 1 of True Detective, it's a psychological mystery as much as it is solving a murder. There is a deep, dark secret behind the murder that is revealed in the first episode. And that deep, dark secret has chilling psychological roots that go back to clandestine religious organization and satanic rituals, and creepily, very creepily, some of the things are eerily resemblant of stories leaking from these documents via the Epstein files and that whole disgusting, sordid affair. A psychological profile is essential. And this is true in football as well. A coach wants to know the nature of their opponent. Are they risky? Do they take risks? Are they impulsive? Are they undisciplined? Where are they vulnerable? What in their psychological makeup can allow us to expose them? Can we get under their skin? Are they front runners? If we get out to a fast start, are they going to roll over? Are they the type of team that plays from ahead really well, but when they get behind, they kind of tuck their tail a little bit? That can dictate your game plan. Are they maybe not the most athletic team, but they have tremendous mental discipline so that you have to be able to hit big plays on them because they're probably going to be disciplined enough if you don't hit those plays to at some point get stops because of their fundamental soundness, for lack of a better term. There was another great series on, might have been Netflix, that ran right around COVID. And I know it ran around COVID because unfortunately they did 2 seasons and then complications through COVID canceled them from doing a third. But the program was called Mindhunters. And it was based on the true story of the FBI's founding of a criminal profiling unit in the 1970s to try to combat the scourge of serial killers that existed in the United States at the time. The 1970s was kind of the heyday for serial killers in America. A lot of reasons as to why. Latchkey kids and very few video surveillance and just a general laissez-faire attitude when it came to policing neighborhoods, etc. But what some law enforcement officials as well as academics believed was that serial killers could be best understood by creating psychological profiles of why they killed. And Mindhunters, the TV show, and it was a really good book as well, dives into the origins of that criminal profiling unit and also of how this unit was then able to build criminal profiles of David Berkowitz, who was son of Sam, the BTK killer, Edward Kemper, some of the most notorious serial killers in the country's history, and ultimately track them down, capture them, etc. This same process happens in coaching all the time. You are trying to understand, get inside the head of your opponent and understand how they think, how they act, why they do what they do, so that you know how to combat that. And once you've done those things, these are kind of the basics. Sort of established a physical pattern, maybe a psychological pattern. Now you really start hunting for your clues and your evidence. The less obvious stuff. Most investigations, the clues don't smack you in the face. OJ's bloody glove is just not generally dropped at the crime scene. You have to hunt for this stuff. And when that, as that is referred to football coaches, that means film. Film study is, to a football coach, what getting out on the pavement and searching the crime scene for fingerprints, DNA evidence, etc., what that is to a detective. In season 1, episode 1 of True Detective, when Matthew McConaughey comes upon the murder scene in the first episode, that really is the launch point for the entire season. He finds these creepy stick figure totems, little, maybe the size of a birdhouse, but these just little, totem is really the only word I can think of. These little figurines that have been constructed and kind of left around the crime scene. He knows they're there for a reason. He knows they have meaning. He doesn't know what it is, but he sketches them in his notebook. And he says, I need to be on the lookout for this. He knows it's a big clue. These little things are often the big clues that tip football coaches in their preparation as to what they can expect from an opponent. And then you have to pass these things on to your players. Little tells are big clues. What are some examples? When I watch film, I want to see how wide receivers line up. If I'm going to coach our defensive backs, one of the biggest things I want to be able to help them understand is, how do these wide receivers line up, and what does that tell us about what's about to come? And I'll tell you what, in high school, this is really true. Definitely not as true in the pros, because they're better at understanding what these triggers mean. But in high school, it's funny. You can watch a wide receiver break the huddle and sort of jog to the line and get into his stance without any sense of urgency or immediacy. And 9 times out of 10, you could say to yourself, that's going to be a run play. He kind of jogs out, gets lined up, hands dangling by his side, ball snapped, jogs out, blocks the corner. Oh, it's inside zone. But when they break that huddle and that kid sprints to his spot and gets set, and he's got his arms are bent, his fists are clenched, and he's in the ready to go position, you need to be able to say to your corners, all right, they're throwing the ball. It's amazing how often that is a tell at the high school level when it comes to wide receivers. Here's another one. Stance of the lineman, of the offensive line. As a head coach, when I was always on the sideline, I wasn't involved in calling our defense. I was pretty much solely involved in the offense. But when I was not, when the other team had the ball, oftentimes I was talking to our O-line, talking to our quarterback, whatever. But there were obviously times when I was not engaged with anyone on the sideline and I was watching the game. And I didn't have a specific position group I was coaching on defense. And so I would always watch the offensive line. And specifically, I would watch their stance. How much pressure are they putting on their hand? That is oftentimes a huge tell as to whether or not this is going to be a run or a pass. In their stance, I mean, are their fingers barely touching the ground? Are they sitting back on their heels? Or are their heels up in the air, weights on their toes, hands in the ground? I used to call it purple fingertips. Do they have purple fingertips? What does that mean? That means there's so much weight on their hand that the blood is rushing to their fingertips and starting to turn purple. And if that's the case, it's a run. Why is all that weight on their hand? So they can get off the damn ball and go forward. Do they have purple fingertips? Here comes the run. Splits of the offensive lineman. When, I first learned offense back in the 1990s running a wing T offense. And the wing T was very, very heavily invested in the splits of the linemen. And one of the feature plays of the wing T was guard trap. And we would always tell our linemen, on the play side. If you're not the puller and the trapper, you're that guard to the side of the trap, open up your split. We're going to trap that 3-tech tackle, that guy on the shoulder of the guard. Get as big a split as you can get away with to widen that tackle. Move that tackle away from the trapper so that that trapper's got more room to get out and get into his trap. You don't want a tight trap. It's hard to dig that guy out. Widen your split, open up the hole, etc. Well, obviously on the flip side of that, what are these guys doing with their splits? Bigger splits oftentimes mean inside run. Condensed splits mean outside run. Why am I condensing my split? I'm trying to bring the defense down, draw the defense down in tighter so we can now widen the edge. These little tells are unbelievably important. Once you've done your base detective work, your macro work, again, what are their formations, their motions, their personnel? What do they like to do situationally? Third and short, third and long. In high school, because hash marks matter a lot more than the pros, the hash marks are closer to the sideline, which gives you a real wide side of the field. You know, are they a team that likes to run to the wide side? Will they go fib, meaning put formation into the boundary and try to attack you there? Once you've done all that stuff, now you dig into the micro aspects of the film. Now you do the real detective work. And you focus on things like splits and stance. I think one of the great stories of masterful detective work by an NFL coach comes from the Super Bowl. I don't remember what number it was, but Seahawks, Patriots, everybody knows the game I'm referring to. It's the Malcolm Butler game. 20 seconds left. Seattle down 4. Second and goal on the 1-yard line. They have a timeout remaining. They have Marshawn Lynch in the backfield. Hand the ball to Marshawn Lynch, score a touchdown, win the football game. But they don't. They come out in a condensed formation where you have the wide receivers to the right of quarterback Russell Wilson in almost a stacked formation. Inside receiver is on the ball. Outside receiver is off the ball, just outside to his right. And they famously run a pick play, and Malcolm Butler comes over the top of the pick and cuts in front of the receiver and intercepts it to seal the Super Bowl for the Patriots. Bill Belichick and Malcolm Butler both talked about how Malcolm Butler knew what to do on that play, and it stemmed from their film study. The Patriots went back and they broke down every single game Seattle had played that season, which counting the playoffs was 18 games. And they charted every formation they ran over 18 games. And they had not run this specific formation in months. They hadn't run it since early in the season, but it was on the chart. If they're in the low red zone, week 5, they ran this formation where they showed kind of a stacked set, and here's what they ran out of that formation. And they actually went over it in a walkthrough prior to the Super Bowl. Now imagine this. Think about literally the dozens upon dozens of formations and the hundreds of different play concepts a team will run over the course of a season. And you have to try to map it all out and then remember it, recall it. And this is one they had not run since early in the season. They hadn't run it in months. It hadn't showed up on film in months. And the Patriots walked through it prior to the Super Bowl. And Malcolm Butler remembered it specifically because when they walked through it and New England's scout team ran the play, Malcolm Butler tried to come under the pick and he couldn't get there in time. And it was an easy touchdown. Inside receiver runs right at Butler. Outside receiver comes underneath. Butler has to make a quick decision. Do I go under or over the pick? In that practice, he went under it, and it didn't work. And Belichick said to him, if you get into the game And they run this look. You have to come over top of that thing. And importantly, he said to the corner who was lined up on the inside receiver, you have to jam the hell out of him and not give him a clean release so he affects Malcolm's path to the football. And sure enough, with 20 seconds left, this formation that Seattle had not run in months, here they come out of the huddle and they line up in it, and Malcolm Butler goes, ooh, I recognize this formation. We went over this, and I remember what coach said. And I can't remember who the corner was inside of him jamming the inside receiver, but he remembered it as well. And they jammed the inside receiver, and Butler went over top of the pick. And because there was a jam, he had a flat angle, and he got downhill, and he stepped in front and picked it off. And that is now one of the most iconic, or at least memorable, plays in Super Bowl history. And why did it exist? Because Bill Belichick is a true detective. If you are a coach, it is thrilling when you find that evidence and you use it to allow you to win a football game. So, True Detective, the football coach, and how he uses clues to expose an opponent. I think it's a fascinating parallel. I'll probably binge watch my way through the rest of season 1 over the next couple of days. I look forward to it. It is a remarkable season of television. All right, that's our show. Hope everybody has a great Wednesday. We will have a guest on for Friday, working on some interesting names. I'm trying to get a former NFL defensive lineman to be my guest on Friday. So far, we haven't been able to make our schedules match up. But if so, we'll have a great conversation. Even without, we'll have a great conversation on Friday. So join us for the Hot Route conversation. Until then, hope everybody has a great day. Take care.